Chapter 2, Lesson 2.1, Properties and Operations. The first property is the commutative property of addition. This is basically saying that you could add numbers in any order and the sum is going to be the same. So a plus b equals b plus a. This is basically saying that if you have like 7 plus 2, this is 9. It's the same thing as 2 plus 7. You can add them in any order, it doesn't matter. Multiplication is this, the commutative property of multiplication is the same as the commutative property of addition, except with multiplication. A times b is the same thing as b times a, which is like 5 times 2, which is 10, is the same thing as 2 times 5, which is also 10. Associative property of the associative properties is about grouping. So changing the grouping, changing the grouping of the numbers in a sum does not change the sum. So if you have, let's say you have a plus b in a group plus c, this is the same thing as a plus b plus c. So let me put it in a specific numerical example. If you have 5 plus 2 plus 1, this is 11. It's the same thing as 1 plus 2 plus 5. No, this isn't 11. This is 8. 1 plus 2 plus 5. This is 8. Associative property of multiplication is the same thing as this one, except that multiplication, changing the grouping of the numbers in a product does not change the product. This is basically saying that if you have a, b in a group, a times b in a group times c, it's the same thing as a times b times c, which is in a group. So let's say you have 3 times 10, which is 30, times 2. This would be 60. It's the same thing as if you had 3 times 2, which is 6, times 10, 60. These are these properties which are usually talked about a lot in math, so it's important that you know them. This brings us to example number 1. Example 1, it says you buy a portable CD player for $48, rechargeable batteries with a charger for $25, and the CD case for $12. Find the total cost. So if you have $48, you also have $25, and you also have $12. You're finding the total cost. If you're adding up the prices, you could add 48 plus 25 plus 12, or you could do 25 plus 12 plus 45, 25 plus 48 plus 48 plus 12. All of these are going to equal 85. The order in which you add them doesn't matter. This is using commutative property of addition. And grouping doesn't matter either. If you wanted to do 48 plus 25 plus 12, or 25 plus 12 in a group plus 48, these would also equal 85. This is using the associative property of addition. Could use both ways of getting to it. Both are correct ways of approaching the problem. Example 2 is using properties of multiplication. So let's do example 2. Example 2 is evaluating 4xy when x equals -7 and y equals 25. So here you could group them, multiplying them in any order. You could do 4 times -7 times 25. You could do 4 times 25 in a group times -7. You could do them in any order. You could group them in any way. You could do them in any order. You could do 25 times 4 times -7. You could do -7 times 4 times 25. All of these are all going to equal negative 700. It doesn't matter what order you do them in or anything. It's always going to be that way. So this brings us to example 3. Example 3 is using properties to simplify variable expressions. So if we are asked to simplify the expression x plus 3 plus 6, you could group, we don't know what x is in this situation. X is unknown. They don't give us a value for x. So you could do x plus 3 plus x. You could do x plus 3 plus 6. This is associative property. This is commutative property. You could do x plus 6 plus 3. You could do 3 plus 6 plus x. You could do anything. You could do 6 plus 3 plus x. Any of them. All of these, since we don't know what x is, are all going to equal x plus 9. Also, if we had multiplication, let's say we had 4 times 8y. This can be reworded. This could be 4y in a group times 8. This could be 4 times 8 times y. This could be y times 8 times 4. Any order, you could group them in any way. It's all going to be the same answer. All of this is going to equal 32y. 32 times y, since we don't know what y is. This is all of example 3. This brings us to example 4. Let's say this is about identifying properties. So example 4. Let's say here we have negative 5 times 1 equals negative 5. What property is this? Identity property of multiplication, which is that anything times 1 is what is like, if you have negative 100 times 1, it's going to be negative 100. This is identity property of multiplication. Identity property. If you have 2 plus negative 9 equals negative 9 plus 2. This is clearly the commutative property of addition. Commutative property addition. If you have y squared plus 0 equals y squared, this is an identity property of addition, which is that anything plus 0 is the original thing. So identity property. In multiplication, if you multiply by 0, it's always going to be 0, but that's not identity property. The identity property of multiplication is with anything times 1, and with addition is anything plus 0. It's going to be the original thing. And D, we have 2 times P times Q is the same thing as 2 times P times Q. This is associative property of multiplication because you could group the numbers in any way. Multiplication, identity property of addition, and identity property of multiplication. Sorry for not introducing the identity property, but it's just anything times 1 is the original thing, and anything plus 0 is the original thing. It's fairly simple. And this particular lesson teaches us something at the end called unit analysis. You could use unit analysis to find a conversion factor that converts a given measurement to different units. So a conversion factor is, let me write all this down. Unit analysis. let's say you have 1 foot. We know that 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches. If 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches, this is 1 over 1. Like 1 foot over 12 inches, it's 1 over 1. Since this equals 12 inches and 12 inches equals 1 foot, it's 1 over 1. So let's say we have, if we wanted to convert 3 feet to inches, what we could do is we multiply, since this is 3 feet over 1, we could multiply by 12 inches over 1 foot, which is, this is a form of 1. You would like to think of this as a different version of 1. Since 12 inches is the same thing as 1 foot, this is basically 1 over 1. So in reality, you're not changing the original value, you're just changing the way it's presented. So let's say feet and foot would cancel out, and the multiplication by cross like multiplying, and then you have 36 inches is 3 feet converted to inches. That's basically what unit analysis is, and how you can use a conversion factor to change the units in which something is presented in, such as here when we change 3 feet to inches using the conversion factor, 12 inches over 1 foot. If you wanted to change 36 inches, let's say you wanted to change 36 inches back to feet, you always put the unit you want on top. So 12 inches over 1 foot is the same thing as 1 foot over 12 inches, but you want to have the unit that you want in the outcome on top. So in this case, we would do 1 foot over 12 inches. This is so when we cross multiply, the unit you don't want can cancel out. Then you do 36 times 1 equals 36 feet over 12, which is 3 feet. And this brings us to example 5. Example 5 is about multiplying by conversion factors. So we have to find a conversion factor that converts yard to feet. And if you want to convert yards to feet or feet to yards, we get 2 conversion factors. 1 yard over 3 feet, or 3 feet over 1 yard. Since 1 yard is the same thing as 3 feet, both of these are alternate versions of 1. So once we found this, and unit analysis shows that a conversion factor that converts yards to feet has feet in the numerator. So if you want to convert something to feet, you have to have feet in the numerator and yards in the denominator. Because look, let's see, you have yards, you want to convert it to feet, you multiply by feet over yards. So this is over 1. So when you cross multiply, these cancel, you end up with feet. So if you have, the example they give us is if you have 711 yards and you want to convert it to feet, you would have to multiply, this is all over 1, you would have to multiply by feet over yards. So 3 feet equals 1 yard. So when we cross out yards, we end up doing 2,711 times 3, which ends up being 8,133 feet, which is the unit that we have in the outcome. This is very, very helpful for the future whenever you need to convert units, because you always need to convert units, whether it's feet, miles, there's so much units that you need to convert in and out of. It's truly very helpful.